Newfoundland society has been shaped by the rock and by the sea. It grew from strength and endurance. It was tempered by tragedy and loss. Our people built their stores, their stages, their homes, their halls and their churches with their own hands and to their own designs. They created on this rough edge of the cold North Atlantic an architecture that epitomized their capacity to come to terms with their harsh environment and their determination to survive and to grow. Our ancestors built not only for themselves, but also for us, their successors. They built for us a heritage of which we can be proud. And it is our responsibility to build upon the foundation that they laid, to build upon that foundation with confidence in its strength.
This we have not always done, and by a process of destruction and neglect have allowed many of our finest treasures to disappear forever. The Bank of Montreal building and the old post office in St. John's, Blenheim in Placentia, the Garland House in Trinity are gone forever. But even these losses did not disturb our lethargy. Other important structures followed the road to oblivion. A fish store in Twillingate dating from 1742, St. Michael's Church on Bell Island, Munn's premises in Harbour Grace, the Carey House in Witless Bay, the Barber Store in Newtown, the Carter premises in Herring Neck, and most recently the greatest surviving fishing premises, the Earl Complex at Fogo. All gone, and these are only a few of the long catalogue of irretrievably lost elements of our heritage and of our history. It is a grim record. Yet as any stranger will tell you, we are fortunate enough to have still an extraordinarily rich heritage of buildings remaining, and these encompass the whole range of Newfoundland architecture, from twine loft to cathedral. It is now vitally important that we realize the treasure they represent and work together to prevent further destruction. And to this argument for preservation on the basis of culture must be added the argument from economics.
Many people assume that because buildings are old, they are neither safe nor sound. But that is not necessarily true, as anyone who has ever taken down an old house can tell you. Most of our oldest buildings survive because they were well constructed, of good wood, and in a fashion that was meant to ensure survival. With proper maintenance, that survival can be almost indefinite. In surviving, they can serve as significant attractions in our developing tourist trade. Surveys have shown, indeed, that old buildings and the historic landscapes of towns are often the reasons why people come to visit. Thus, the town that is most likely to attract visitors is that which has preserved and restored most heritage buildings to good condition. Of course, we must be sensible. We must realize that because of our geographical location, tourism will not solve all our economic problems. Nonetheless, tourism can be one of the varied means by which we both earn money and add a new dimension to our lives. Running a hospitality home, for example, can mean more than income. It can mean the pleasure of having strangers visit. Strangers who, because they appreciate Newfoundland, become friends. Indirectly, visitors can supply the means of keeping our historic buildings in good repair. With imaginative conversions, an old school building can provide housing for the elderly. A fish store can become a retail store or a hotel. A change of use need not alter the heritage character of a building. For example, the exterior may be fully preserved while the interior may be modified to suit the new function. While it is always best if heritage buildings can be used for practical purposes, we must also preserve them for cultural reasons. For too long we have presumed that we were only temporary residents of Newfoundland. We have acted as if we were all waiting for the next boat to Boston or the next bus to Toronto. If we are to continue to survive and to flourish in this land, we must have pride in it and pride in what our ancestors built here. Our built heritage must become an important part of our strategy for survival. What does remain survives because it was well built. This in itself should be a source of pride. In these old buildings, our parents and our grandparents were born, were married, lived and died. In them we repeat the cycle. In them we bring up our own children, and if we are wise, we pass these buildings on to their generation. Such buildings are the landmarks of our lives. They are the maps of our past. If we lose them, then we lose ourselves and we lose our Newfoundland.
It is up to us to act. We cannot rely on governments to do everything for us. Governments can, of course, establish the right political climate. They can make policy decisions that reflect a commitment to conservation and encouragement to the people at large. They may and should become directly involved in major projects that require major funding. But we cannot expect government to take full responsibility for every house, every school, every church, every lodge, every place of business that is of heritage quality. Nevertheless, since heritage conservation is a matter of social utility, we do expect some public support for owners who are willing to commit themselves to the protection of heritage properties. And this is where the Heritage Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador comes in. The Heritage Foundation was established by the Newfoundland government in 1984 to assist in the identification and preservation of heritage buildings. Operated by a voluntary board of directors from all regions of Newfoundland, it acts upon application from property owners to register heritage buildings and subsequently provide cash grants to assist with restoration and preservation projects. In doing so, it works on the principle that a dynamic heritage is better than a static one, that it is better for people to continue to live and work in heritage buildings rather than to have those buildings emptied of people and converted into museums. Thus, the Foundation will, for example, assist individuals who wish to continue to live in and to preserve the distinctive features of heritage homes. This, the Foundation believes, is a reasonable approach to heritage preservation, not only because it encourages maintenance and protection of valued buildings, but also because the Foundation works for a living heritage and not a dead one.
How does the Foundation work? How do you get assistance? The first step is designation of your building, for no building can receive a grant unless it has been registered as a heritage structure. To be registered, a building must possess certain architectural or historic characteristics that are deemed to be of heritage quality. Registered structures do not have to be extremely old. Indeed, the Foundation has already designated buildings that were built in this century. What is often more important than age is the quality and style of design or construction on the one hand, or of historic or social association on the other. Architecturally, a building worthy of registration might be a very good example of a particular style, or the work of an important architect or builder, or an excellent representative of a particular building type. Generally speaking, a building of architectural significance will have most of its original features still intact and visible, even though they may be in need of restoration work. The building may, for example, have a particular roof form, an interesting open fireplace, a superb staircase, or an unusual porch. If the building has been extensively modernized, if contemporary materials such as vinyl siding or aluminum slider windows have been used, then it could not be registered. To be registered on historical grounds, the building will have to have been associated with an important person or event in Newfoundland history. But even so, the building will be expected to be essentially intact. to look much as it did when it was occupied by the historic person or was the scene of the important historic event. In some cases, buildings that are not particularly distinguished, either on architectural or historic grounds, may still be eligible for registration if they are representative of a particular aspect of Newfoundland life. If you want your building designated by the Heritage Foundation, you will need to provide the Foundation's board with sufficient information to make a full and clear decision on the property. Among the sort of information that must be provided are a clear set of photographs of the building. These should include shots of the building taken from a number of exterior angles, photographs of significant interior details such as staircases, doorways, fireplaces, doors, and also, if possible, photographs of the roof framing and the cellar and the wall framing.
Your application will be considered by a committee of the board made up of people knowledgeable in both Newfoundland architecture and history. And they will recommend to the board whether or not the structure you have should be designated. It is very important that that committee should have as much information as possible. That means you must provide sufficient photographs, you must provide sufficient written information on the history of your structure. Please remember that the board meets only twice a year, and that if we have to go back to you for further information or for adequate photographs, the decision will be delayed both on your registration and on your grant application. If you have difficulties, look carefully at the application form itself. The folder contains information on how to fill it out. But if you do need assistance, please contact the Foundation office and they will be quite happy to help you.
If your building is registered as a heritage structure, a distinctive plaque with a brief explanation of its significance will be mounted upon it or adjacent to it as may be appropriate. Following registration, you may wish to seek a grant for necessary restoration. Indeed, you may submit both registration and grant applications at the same time. The Foundation is able to make grants for registration or preservation of features of registered buildings, providing 1/2 the required funds up to a maximum of $10,000. If, for example, your building needs special woodwork for the repair or replacement of windows and doors, and the total bill for that work amounted to $14,000, then the Foundation could cover up to $7,000 of that expense. On the other hand, financial assistance is not available for general maintenance, for renovations or improving services such as plumbing or wiring, nor is it available to provide funding for work already done. Thus, it is important to ensure that your grant application is submitted in good time and contains properly detailed explanations and complete estimates of the cost of the work to be done. Generally, interior work will only qualify for a grant where the quality or special features of the interior are among the reasons for the building having been registered.
The Heritage Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador was created because Newfoundlanders have a cultural and an architectural heritage that is well worthy of preservation. The objectives of the Foundation are to work with all those who have a desire to preserve the works of their ancestors, whether that preservation be for pleasure or for profit, or for the joy of transmitting them to those who come after us. We ask you to help the Foundation in this work.
If you have questions or would like further information, please contact the Heritage Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador